Another episode of the podcast. I'm here with Brett and Courtney from Body FX. Thank you guys for coming in and doing this today. First one in the studio, if you want to call it. So appreciate you guys being not the guinea pigs, but testing it out here with me. So thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. The real reason why I wanted to talk with you guys is we were talking on the way up here that been getting into this, hot, cold plunge contrast over the last few years, and found you guys here when I looked up Brevard County and started looking for some ways to maybe push people to test it a little bit because it comes up quite frequently. So tell us, what is Body FX? How did it start? And maybe we'll start right there.
Yeah, so Body FX is Courtney and I's business that we started a few years ago here in Brevard, and we're physical therapists. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and nice. Courtney's a physical therapy assistant, and nice. She actually started the business on her own a few years ago, and cool. I came on about 2 years ago. So nice. We had this idea to kind of combine manual physical therapy and contrast therapy in a overall sort of wellness approach. Nice. And we evolved into getting 3 cold plunges, nice. Infrared sauna, and we also have a Normatec compression system that we use.
Cool. I saw that. Well. I wasn't familiar with the compression. What is that primarily for?
It's just a vasopneumatic compression, so it feels like a nice little gentle massage on your limbs, your extremities, nice. Just to try to push any fluid that might be, sitting in your legs or your arms. It feels kind of nice. It's some people like to use it after they plunge as like a little reward. It just feels good. They can just relax into it, but just kind of acts as a pump, like to push that fluid out if you've got anything.
Cool.
In there, yeah.
I call it like a blood pressure cuff massage. That's kind of the best
okay. So
it
tightens
like tightens and releases and tightens. Yeah.
Nice.
So
nice.
Yeah, Brett kind of hit on it, but like we both were in a pretty traditional physical therapy setting for quite some time. Like you were over 8 or 9 years, and I was 6 or 7, and we just were treating 16 patients a day, and it wasn't just great patient care, and we were just both getting a little bit burnt out. So that's that's a big reason why I started it, is I just was wanting to focus more on patient care and a little bit more untraditional setting. So I actually started in a CrossFit gym in their loft, and kind of had a built-in client base to start from there. So we grew from there, and Brett joined me after we grew a little bit, and it was a great fit, and we've just kept growing. So we actually moved into a facility of our own, but directly behind the CrossFit gym. So we were able to keep that membership base as well, which is a good segue into growing more. So
for sure. Good segue for PT, for recovery. I had a CrossFit Masters athlete come on, and we talked, and I like talking with people that are a little older than me that are still out there getting it, but one thing he's always talking about is recovery, and that CrossFit always scared me a little bit. I'm always hesitant. I don't want to get injured because with the kids and surfing and everything like that. So sweet. For people that don't know, like, what is like this contrast therapy? It seems like over the last few years this has been growing in popularity for a lot of different reasons, but how do you explain it to people when you first get into that piece of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of started this up right as the popularity like skyrocketed.
Yeah, good timing.
Now it's obviously all over social media and everywhere. So basically it's obviously going back and forth from cold to hot, right? So you're shocking your system by getting in this cold water, which creates a lot of benefits to your overall system in your body, both mentally, physically. You get obviously muscular benefits as far as anti-inflammatory, just being in the cold. Yeah. But we've discovered that there's a lot of chemical benefits as well. Mainly from the cold plunge, that you set off your parasympathetic nervous system. You get a large amount of dopamine increase. Yeah. It suppresses cortisol levels. Okay. It gives you a big energy boost. A lot of people work out afterwards. Yeah. They sleep better. Yeah. They do it after a workout for recovery. So there's lots of different avenues that you can use it for. And we tell people, you need to kind of explore it for yourself and see what works for you, what works the best. But going back and forth from hot to cold, you also kind of get a pumping mechanism in your cells. So when you go from cold, you're going to get cellular compression. Go into the heat in the sauna, it expands. Then you go back into the cold and it compresses, and you get basically a pump in your cells, and it kind of flushes out toxins, lactic acid, those types of things.
Nice.
And
didn't there used to be like a fear of that, where if you got too hot and then too cold too quickly, that people would be more, I think it was my mom that said this to me when I was telling her I was doing this more frequently. Wasn't there some fear back in the day where it could still cause some issue if you do that too quickly? I mean, how does that work?
I haven't really heard of too much, I guess. We obviously have people sign a waiver that says you're healthy and you don't have any underlying cardiovascular conditions that could be limiting you in this. Because it is a shock, like he said. Even just if you get in the cold the first time, it's rough. We keep our cold plunges anywhere between 47 to 52 degrees. Okay. And I mean, just getting in for the first time, it's a shock. It takes your breath away, so that can be scary for a lot of people.
Oh, sure.
But I don't know if I've ever heard of it being necessarily bad for you, other than if you already have some other underlying condition,
right?
And you don't want to shock your heart and your body.
I think you hit it there. It's shocking people's heart. Going from the contrast too quickly. But
you have to be healthy enough to be able to sustain something like that, which we screen people for. Beforehand. So
got it.
I would say most people are fearful of that discomfort of the cold, and it is pretty shocking to the body.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel great when you're in there, but as you know, it feels great when you get out. So.
Yeah. So to clarify, I have one at the house. I have a cold plunge. I have the regular version, but with the pro heater. So it can be a heater or a chiller, which is nice. My wife likes the hot tub side of it. I actually like both. And then the sauna right next to it. And the contrast is nice post-workout or just in a recovery session in itself. But I think the thing for me, and people ask me I'm doing the cold maybe 3 days a week. Mine's at 42. So I started with just bringing bags of ice for your for your bathtub, maybe 5 years ago. And then I converted a chest freezer. So you've seen where people convert those down. And then I like that. The water wasn't always as clean as I liked it to be, and then draining it and doing that every time was a pain. And then ended up making the investment to get the actual cold plunge. So I tell people, try it first before you make an investment. But that's where I thought you guys' avenue came in nicely, because a monthly membership, you can come as frequently as you want, or how does the membership work?
Yeah, so it's $70 a month. You can come 1 visit a day, up to 6 days a week. We're open Monday through Saturday.
Okay.
We are just appointment based because we only have the 3 plunges, and then our sauna only comfortably fits 3 people. So that's really the only caveat, is that you just have to make an appointment. But we typically have day of availability. So we have roughly 85 to 90 members right now, and
nice.
I would say that they've never said they've had any issue with finding appointments or anything. So it's a pretty flexible schedule, and we could get a lot of people that come in and do both the contrast therapy, they do the cold and the sauna. We have some people that just come in and only cold plunge, and so basically 1 visit a day, 6 days a week for the membership. You basically get 45 minutes to use any of our recovery equipment however you'd like.
Nice.
So,
cool.
And we also do offer a free 45-minute trial. So we encourage people to come try it for free and see how you like it, and basically take it from there. So that gets a lot of people kind of past that initial barrier of just trying it, because you can come try it for free and see how you like it. So
I still find myself trying to talk myself out of it each time, even though I enjoy it. And people are like, well, what do you like about it? It's when I get out.
Exactly.
When your body heats itself back up. That's what I like mostly. Letting it eat without going straight to the sauna, just naturally letting it warm up seems to be what feels the best to me. And then that dopamine hit that you were talking about, that's when my wife likes to hit me with the challenging questions, or if she wants something specific, we just got a new pig. I kind of have a little farm too.
Cool.
She asked me that when I was in the ice bath to get that signed off on, if you will.
Good time to knock off the honey-do list.
She's learning. She's learning when to ask me specific things that I think she knows I would say no to if I wasn't suffering for a little while beforehand. So, what do you guys you do a like a movement assessment too, because one thing that for me personally, as I'm 36, so I'm getting older, I guess like getting older, but I want to stay able to move for as long as I can, that's with surfing and obviously with the kids and things. But when you do those kind of things, what do you see like primarily as people's like obstacles, specific areas, or like just stiffness in general, or how does that movement assessment work?
Yeah, so we kind of, I'm also 36 and I feel you on that. I also have 2 children and just trying to stay active and everything else. But yeah, basically when I do a movement assessment on people, it's a combination of like assessing posture, range of motion, flexibility, strength, joint mobility, soft tissue, those types of things, and kind of picking apart your body to find out what kind of weaknesses or imbalances might be present and addressing that via manual therapy techniques. So we do a lot of one-on-one, hands-on treatments. Courtney and I do the scraping technique, which is like the Graston instruments, cupping.
I saw that. That's like almost like not a metal bar, but almost kind of like a metal bar.
Yeah, it's stainless steel. There's 6 different instruments. They have different shapes and sizes, and basically they're used to help break up any myofascial restriction you may have. Just tightness. It helps promote blood flow, to just promote healing to the area. So it just helps with mobility, flexibility. It's the same, the cupping. You've probably seen people have those cupping marks. Cupping is the same idea for myofascial release. Instead of scraping, it just kind of lifts and loosens through that suction component of the cup. But yeah, just kind of different modalities that he was hitting on just to try to improve pain, range of motion, flexibility, help keep people healthy and active. And
nice.
I would say that we get your traditional PT client, somebody that maybe, has an injury or had surgery of some sort. But a lot of times, too, we're also treating people more on a maintenance level. So, power lifters, bodybuilders, CrossFitters, they have training, and they need to recover to be able to continue training. So we see a lot of people just for maintenance work as well, which is kind of the benefit that we get being a small business, not taking insurance. We have that flexibility, and that's a nice.
We can treat your whole body. You don't have to just be there for your shoulder or whatever.
Nice.
We can work on everything. And then we also supplement that with like home exercises that we send home with you. So we try to work on stuff that you can't do at home when you're with us, and then send you home with things that supplement your training that you're already performing. Nice. So,
and it seems to be working. I read through some of your guys' Google reviews, and the amount of them that said things like how you changed their life or impacted their life, like that's got to feel pretty good. I'm sure you guys get that regularly from individuals, but I think that for me, when you see things like a range of motion, that's one that I know I need to get better at, but sometimes I just can't find the motivation, I suppose, to stay committed to it. Do you find that with your clients coming through as well, or is it easier to have somewhere to go, to have the support of you guys to stay committed to that kind of stuff?
I think our setting, like Courtney touched on, like people are paying out of pocket to see us, and they're more likely to be compliant and listen and do their homework, and they get good results from it, so it's a great model because people they're actively seeking us, so it's not like they were just randomly referred to us by
the doctor
or whatever. So I think that in that sense, I think that really helps with our outcomes, that we get that rapport, we get that commitment, and we get those results. So
nice.
I haven't really run into that in our clinic nearly as much as I had in my previous experiences. So
I would agree with that, and having both sides. So we have like the recovery side, the cold plunge and sauna, and then having the PT side. They definitely kind of coincide. Somebody will come in because they see we have cold plunges, but then they see what Brett and I do hands on, and then they're like, oh, I want to do that. And then vice versa, they come in to see us for PT, and then they see that we have cold plunges and they try that. So it's a nice little model, and it all just kind of meshes together really, really well, just for more of a holistic wellness, kind of a one-stop shop is kind of, I guess, what we're trying to get at, and just really trying to hit home, like, keep your body healthy, to keep you active, keep you moving, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I heard something a few years ago where sitting is the new smoking, and people, through their jobs or just back and forth in their vehicles, so I like that. Keep it moving for as long as you can. Seems to be a pretty good way to live, if you will. But it is easy to get complacent, I suppose, in your overall wellness journey. But did you guys do CrossFit too? I mean, is that where you kind of found an avenue there, or?
Yeah, I do CrossFit, and up until just 2 months ago, actually, I was a CrossFit coach at the gym that I started in. I was at a traditional PT setting for several years, and I was actually treating a lot of the members from that gym at my PT, the clinic that I was at, and they were paying the clinic, and I'm basically treating all of these extra people and not seeing anything from it, and I was just getting basically overworked, and I was like, I could do this on my own. So the owner of the CrossFit gym that I was at, he was very, very helpful in getting me up and going and helping, and obviously having a place in their gym was really helpful, and we had that built-in client base, not necessarily that CrossFitters are always injured or anything. It's just like any other sport, but just kind of overuse injuries, or again, they just want to stay healthy. They've got this little tweak, and so they just come see us for 1 or 2 sessions, hopefully, and then they're good to go, instead of that traditional 2 to 3 times a week for 4 to 6 weeks physical therapy session. So yeah, I still do CrossFit. I just don't coach anymore. We still have a really good relationship with the CrossFit gym behind us. We treat a lot of other people from other gyms, and it's just a good community that we've built, and a lot of word of mouth referrals from the gym setting.
That's still the best form of marketing that you can have. You know, people spend tons of money on search engine optimizations and different marketing platforms, but it still seems like word of mouth is the best way to go about it.
Agreed.
It's definitely the best way. It sometimes can be the slowest form, right? But it's definitely the best, because you hear it right from somebody that, hey, go here. It's like you can only do so much to get them in the door, but once they get in the door, they're pretty hooked. So nice.
And like I said, you can see that in your reviews from people, real genuine in terms of what they're saying for you.
That certainly keeps us going to get that kind of feedback. It's very fulfilling to actually be able to have an impact on somebody's quality of life and for sure performance. So
and then they tell all their friends, and you keep doing that for them too.
When I have somebody like refer their mom to me, like that's like the ultimate compliment. You get like a family member that they're like trusting for you to take care of. I think that's a great compliment to what we do.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah, if they feel trusting enough to send you their mother, that's a good sign. I get that.
As far as CrossFit, I actually am mutual friends with one of the owners of the CrossFit gym, and he introduced me and Courtney, and that's kind of how we connected from a business standpoint. I don't do CrossFit. I grew up playing soccer and surfing here in Brevard. I went to Satellite High, and now I'm more into the golf world. So I was actually at the Arnold Palmer Classic yesterday in Orlando. Sweating my butt off because it was super hot.
It got hot quickly in Orlando. Yeah. Golf has eluded me. I've been to like Top Golf and driving ranges and stuff, but I've never played on a golf course. It looks nice. It's a time thing, I suppose.
Time, commitment. It's very difficult to find that time.
Nice.
But I enjoy it. So.
Nice. Where did you like surf growing up?
I pretty much in Satellite.
Okay.
I surfed like at RCs and Busk and stuff like that, and Satellite Beach. So I just own a longboard these days. So kind of got the old man status going on.
Yes, you saw my mid-length over there, my 7.0, and then I with surfing, it started to be like how much foam is in the board, and they measure it in like liters that it can float. So as I got older, I was like, I just need more floating capabilities. But some of the new shapes are fun to get around on.
Definitely.
But I've surfed everywhere from like Jacksonville to Miami, so I've hit almost every spot in between. Miami breaks very rarely. It's got to be the right time, but I mean, you can get South Beach is pretty good spot every now and then. But that's been my most consistent thing in life, and part of recording and doing different things is to find stuff I used to do as a kid and keep doing it. And that's part of the wellness journey, I suppose, too. And why I invested in the sauna and the cold plunge there at the house, because it just made the most sense and made it feel like I could keep moving and keep riding smaller boards and keep you look at guys like Kelly Slater and some of these ones that are in their 50s and they're still competing at a high level, and it's like, man, like how did they do that? And that's kind of where I've been going from a journey standpoint. But what do you see? I mean, I'm sure you get a range of people from young to old, athletic to maybe haven't moved in a while. I mean, what's like the common person that's coming into you guys over there, would you say?
Yeah, you kind of hit it. We get a range. We get a range of people. We've had, we've had some kids, that parents will bring in. The kids nowadays, their athletics, they're serious, and parents are serious. And if their kids are good, they're going to pay for their kid to be, healthy and stay healthy. So we'll see a lot of athletes, younger athletes. And then we also have some people that have had a hip or knee replacement. Like we do see it, and they just basically decide to come see us just instead of going somewhere with their insurance, just to get that more one-on-one hands-on care. So we still get a very big range of musculoskeletal conditions. We've even had some people come in for vertigo. We actually do treat vertigo as well. So we still are in a very orthopedic setting. It's just a lot more individualized than we used to see 2 or 3 people at the same time in our old facility. So
Yikes.
it's still just the same kind of patient, I would say. It's just more on their own terms.
Yeah, maybe a little more, not intimate, I don't know if that's the word, but yeah, if you're seeing multiple patients at once, is that like the difference between an insurance model versus not? I mean, you could probably keep your cost down a little bit too for people if you're not in that insurance model. I mean, I'm not super familiar with that.
That's correct. I mean, you don't have to hire like a billing manager. Like you have to hire a full-time employee just to like send out insurance claims and manage those types of things. So we don't have to deal with that. We don't have to fight with the insurance companies to pay us and
authorizations,
getting authorizations and signing contracts with them. And it's just a bit of a barrier. I'm not trying to bash insurance or anything like that, but it's just something that we experience that it could be a bit of a barrier to people's, outcomes. And
well, that sucks. I mean, it seems like red tape you got to get through, or some political aspect of it, I'm sure. But, there's pros and cons to the insurance-based healthcare system. And we send
plenty of people that, like, we know need that traditional model. They need that 2-3 times a week, and they have the insurance. We do send them to the traditional clinics quite often.
Nice. So you still refer them to them.
Sure. Yeah. So we still have that, ability to refer, within our network of people that we trust. So,
cool. Yeah. The parents of young athletes. So my son's 11 and he's on his 4th or 5th season of football. And when he was 8, he wanted to start play tackle football, and I tried to talk him out of it, which didn't work. But there's just a lot of obviously new research that's come out over the last few years. Young kids and mostly the brain, concerns of tackle football. And I felt to explain that to an 8-year-old was difficult, let alone, adults still. But, I get what you're saying, because there is, when you get to a high level, and he won a few local championships, then he won a state championship, and then they were national runner-ups by 1 point, which was heartbreaking. But so now he gets looked at by a lot of teams and high schools and stuff too. So I'm right there, trying to make sure he stays as healthy as long as he can, because he's putting a lot of miles on his body early on, which is scary. So do you see, and are there any concerns of like younger age children in like exposure to high heat or high cold environments? I mean, is that a concern question. Or do you have children using those things also?
We don't have that many. We have had a couple parents call, and ask what our minimum age is. And basically all the research that we've seen is just limit it. They can do it, but they probably shouldn't be doing it at the same amount of time exposure that adults do. So I've seen kids, 12 I think is the youngest that we've had in there.
Okay.
And parents were there. They signed everything, to make sure they were good. And we just told them, just a couple minutes. Some people, we limit everybody to mostly 10 minutes. That's kind of where we see that the maximum benefit has been reached, is at the 10 minutes. But
in the cold plunge.
Yeah, for the cold plunge. Excuse me. Yeah, and I think it just basically, from what we've seen, from what we looked up when we had people ask, is that it just should be at less amounts of time at one time. So I don't think there's anything negative to it. They process, or they feel pain, and their nervous system's not fully developed yet. Right. So you just want to make sure that they're not
they can't regulate temperature quite as well, like especially under the age of 10. So, you know, I think you said 12 is the youngest we've had, and he was like a high performance athlete.
Nice.
And, you know, so you do have to be cautious, I would say, with a younger population.
In other countries, though, I mean, I think where did saunas come out of? Finland, or not come out of it? They're real popular, Scandinavia, that area. But I mean, those kids get in there regularly. And even in colder places, you know, just cold water exposure, you know, at that temperature, you'd be used to it.
They've been doing it for centuries.
For forever, my kids love it, you know, but I'm kind of that approach where a couple minutes, you know, don't overdo it, and, you know, then get out of there.
You know?
Yeah, I think everything in moderation for everything, right? They can still do it. I would just say, like, not as long you know, in the cold as much. But.
Nice. Do people freak out when they get in at first? That's the funniest. I've had a couple of my friends come over and jump in there, or just stick their hand in, and that's all they get.
It's a good perk to the job, to the people watching aspect, and having to talk people through it. And it's pretty entertaining. But we've gotten pretty good at like walking people through it and explaining the breathing process, and you know, getting that. To me, it's more like mental than it is physical. So
for sure,
getting in that right mindset. And you know, we tell people, like, your body's going to tell you to get out.
Yes.
And you have to fight that. And you
tell that thing to shut up.
I think Courtney says, like, you're safe. Like, you have to convince your brain that you are safe in there, and like you're not going to die. Right.
Right. So Andy Huberman, the Huberman podcast, I don't know if you've heard a lot about him. He's a neuroscience PhD, and he people always ask, you know, how cold are your plunges? You know, how cold do you keep them? And I hit on it earlier about 47 to 52, and they go, oh, well, Joe Rogan does it at 38, so that's not cold enough. And we just have to explain to people that basically Andy Huberman says you want to get in water that's cold enough to exactly shock your system. You say, oh crap, I want to get out, but you can safely stay in. And then that's when your nervous system basically, that's when that dopamine dump happens, is because you've talked to your body and basically said, hey, you're fine. It sucks, but you know, we're going to be okay. So it doesn't have to be 38 degrees to get the cold plunging benefit. It just has to be cold enough for you, you know? So like you said, you keep yours a little colder. I don't know if you started there, but you got to kind of work your way down to that. If you put somebody who's never been in a cold plunge in 38 degrees, it's not going to go well.
It's going to be miserable, and they'll probably never come back.
Right.
You know?
And
not see them again.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And the only added benefit that I've heard and read, and correct me if I'm wrong, for being in that cold is like that you don't have to stay in as long. And then maybe the mental toughness of I stayed in 38 degree water, you know. So but you're gonna still get those benefits no matter how cold it is, as long as you get in and your body's like, oh crap, and kind of takes your breath away. And that's we get a lot of yelling and cursing and
we encourage it.
So we're like, better out than in. Just yell, curse, whatever you want to do. So.
That's so funny. I have a video of a buddy of mine who got in for the first time before I got the plunge, when I had the chest freezer, and that's exactly what he did. He's yelling, he's cussing, like whatever it takes to get you to feel comfortable.
I think I've been cursed out a few times, but I'm like, that's fine.
Like, how dare you let me get in here? You could take it.
That's good.
Yeah.
We actually get disappointed if they're quiet.
Right?
I'm like,
oh man.
I was kind of looking forward to seeing how you'd react. Nice. But it's all good.
A lot of people do kind of like, they see that it's like 50 degrees and they're like, oh, that's easy. And then they get in and they're like,
wrong.
No, it was not easy. So.
Well, especially with the moving water.
That's what I was just going to ask you, if you noticed a difference going from like your ice to then a chest freezer and then to like the plunge that has the moving water, which is the convection, makes it feel colder. And
huge difference. In the chest freezer, and people used to think I was crazy for saying this, I felt like I could eventually warm up the area around me, you know, and then
your body heat.
Your body's heating it up, and then if it's, I don't know, if it's like, it feels like a thermal layer almost. Exactly if you moved around a little bit, it would make it, you know, colder again. And then with the water moving, though, you don't get that at all. So now, like, I try to hide from the jet, you know, if it's too cold. But you hit it for me, which was, as I started, it was probably in the 50s or, you know, maybe even upper 50s a couple times too. And then with more consistent, you know, a couple days a week, it just seemed like, you know, I could be in there either longer, which time is everyone's most valuable asset, I suppose. So getting it colder made it less time I had to spend or commit to it, which was always, you know, sort of what I was looking for.
Yeah.
How about the sauna? What kind of temperature are those getting to?
So
is it infrared?
We have
or?
a full spectrum infrared sauna, and we have it at 150 degrees.
Nice.
Which is pretty much where it's maxed out.
Yeah.
And people spend, they'll do anywhere 2 to 10 minutes in the cold plunge, and then 15, 20 minutes in the sauna, and then we always encourage people to end on the cold, like you mentioned.
In the cold.
We talked about earlier before we started, was that natural warming process of your body is very beneficial from what we've read in the research and everything. So as far as the sauna, it's a full spectrum infrared sauna. It actually has some those halo salt blocks in there as well.
I haven't heard of those.
They're basically just like Himalayan salt blocks that are incorporated into the sauna.
So you're breathing it in.
You're breathing in some salt as you hang out in the sauna. And
I like the sound of that.
Help with your lungs and purification and that type of thing. So.
I've always felt that with the ocean. I mean, there's a few ladies that I've met. My grandfather had a condo up here 6 south of the pier, and this lady would go out and I'm pretty sure she would snort salt water every day. That's an extreme, but I think there's something too, being around salt, breathing in salt, just on a regular basis.
I don't have much scientific basis for this, but I've always felt that it's just the ultimate healer.
100%.
Just being in that salt water, and there's something about it for sure.
I would agree. I've taken it as far as times where I felt like maybe I was getting a little sick. If you just come, I think the sun helps too. Getting some vitamin D and things there as well. But just come be around the ocean a little bit, I start to feel better.
But back to the sauna. I mean, there are a lot of benefits just to going in the sauna by itself.
Yep.
You get obviously circulation benefits, blood flow, skin.
Yeah, good for your skin, just detox. And do you have an infrared or do you have a traditional?
Traditional. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, we get a lot of people that ask why we chose that. And the benefits for an infrared and a traditional are the same. You're still going to, still going to sweat. You're still going to get that blood flow. You're still going to have that detoxification component of it. We just got the infrared because it's just a little bit more tolerable, right?
Sure.
So it heats you from the inside out. The infrared rays actually penetrate deeper into your tissues versus a traditional sauna, it's heating the air around you and making you sweat. But they both, end goal is the same for both. It's just that we got the infrared because it's a little bit more tolerable, so people can maybe sit in there a little longer if they'd like. You can do up to 45 minutes at a time in an infrared versus in a traditional 200-degree sauna. You're not doing 45 minutes at that. So,
no way.
So basically their end goal is the same. It's just we went with that for a little bit more just comfortability's sake. So it's infrared's pretty maxed out. He said at 150. It's pretty optimal at 140 to 150. So
that makes sense. I mean, newer tech. I think obviously traditional sauna's been around a little bit longer. That's kind of the route I went, and I like the steam approach too, with the hot rocks, be able to pour it on there. You made me think about trying to figure out how to incorporate salt into it now a little bit, or what other options there are to add to that. Yeah, I started using saunas post-workout at the gym. So probably 6 or 7 years ago, they had one at the gym I was going to at the time, and I loved it. After your workout, end on that, 15, 20 minutes. I don't remember what the temps were, but I probably use that. I'm probably in that thing 6 days a week. I love the cold, but I don't do it as frequently as I do the sauna. And people ask me what do you get out of it? To me, it's a cheat cardio workout, because you're sitting still and your heart is beating fast, so I think it helps in my overall cardiovascular performance too. And I love just sweating out whatever you're doing, and I think that's where I get the most benefits. Usually post workout, I like the sauna the most, but yeah. Is that what you would recommend for people, or whatever, they feel comfortable with, or?
Yeah, we get I think he hit it on this at the beginning. Yeah. Basically, people ask, when is the best time to cold plunge? When is the best time to sauna? And it's really what you're trying to get out of it, right? Sure. So we get a lot of people that come first thing in the morning because it gives them that jolt of energy for the rest of their day. We get a lot of people that come at night because it actually helps them sleep better. It's really just a preference thing. It's when you feel you're getting the best benefit out of it. We have some people that he said come and do a cold plunge in a sauna session before they work out, because there's actually research that shows cold plunging can help increase testosterone. So that's good right before a big strength workout or something. Sure. And then people come directly after a workout just so that they're not super sore the next day. The only thing that we say that you really shouldn't do, or that at least the research says, is if you're purely trying to bulk, like, you know, you're really trying to like improve your strength and really bulk and get every like millimeter of mass you can, you probably shouldn't cold plunge for like 3 to 4 hours after a strength workout.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's really just when you prefer. It's like everybody's physiologically different. Everybody's brain chemistry is different. So it's just when you feel it's the best for you.
Yeah, I think I've heard Huberman say that too. If you're going for bulk or for size, you know, it's not necessarily, unless it's comfort, unless you know, injured something or you need a quick, you know, shot of, I guess, relief from cold too. So,
yeah. We encourage people to switch it up. You know, we say, try it before, try it after, try it in the morning, try it at night, and just see what you like. And that's where it's nice that we have that flexibility in our schedule, that you can come early, late, Saturdays. You know, we have a lot of availability. So.
Nice. Do people try to that once a day? Is there an option where people can come, or do people try to come more than once a day in some cases, or
rarely?
Okay.
We've had a few times where people have asked, and it just kind of depends on the day and the situation and everything. But for the most part, you know, if you can come in 6 times a week, like that's a lot.
That's a lot, and that's more than what most people are getting, you know, from an exposure to it standpoint.
Sure.
But you hit something, I think, but you both mentioned it, the sleep piece, you know, the exposure to heat and cold and how that impacts your sleep patterns, I think is huge. I mean, I tell people this, and I've been sleeping probably 10 hours a night for, I don't know, 10 years, 11 years or something. I prioritize that as something I think is beneficial to build into your routine to be able to, back to the longevity piece too. So what is it that, I mean, I guess I'm not so sure why that impacts it. I mean, I guess it's, you know, I think I can, but why is that?
Probably that goes right back to the hormonal influence and the influence it has on your nervous system as far as like your fight or flight response. A lot of people are constantly living in that realm as far as being on edge. Like their sympathetic system is just always on just firing, and I think that the cold plunging basically like resets your nervous system. It really promotes like the better hormones and chemicals to be created in your body. It suppresses like stress levels, such as like your cortisol levels. And to me, that all results in an improved ability to relax and get yourself into a deeper sleep cycle. Do you have anything more to say?
Yeah, I was going to say decrease cortisol with, again, your stress hormones, so anxiety, all that kind of stuff, but also boost serotonin. So that serotonin dump is good. So like some people, they've come in the afternoon and they're like, I went home and took a 3-hour nap. I cannot come in the afternoon again. I have to come at night because like it just makes them so sleepy. But again, everybody's brain chemistry is different. So I think that the sleeping is, as he hit on it pretty well, with just the hormonal, I think, component to it. Just helps kind of regulate everything. So,
which is huge, you know, and like you guys keep saying, everybody's different, and try it and see what works for you, you know, and there's no real, at least I think the other option of like cryo chambers, those ones scare me. Like the fear of those, and again, not to talk bad about them, but those ones scare me a little more than getting in, you know, cold water versus, you know, like fast freezing yourself, it seems like.
There's also not a ton of research on the cryo chambers. I actually did them like several years ago before we had started BodyFX or anything. And I personally, again, I didn't notice any like true benefit to it. I could say that maybe like it's really good for your skin, I suppose, like because of that flash freezing. Like they do local cryotherapy too, like to faces and stuff. I think it kind of goes back to the same thing as like a traditional sauna too, like where it heats the air around you. The cryo kind of does the same thing. It cools the air around you, but I don't think it really kind of immerses you and actually penetrates, you know, into like your system and stuff. So I just don't think there's as much research on it, but maybe for the hormonal component of it, maybe for a little bit of skin and muscle, that kind of stuff. But
it's very local versus like a systemic.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hitting at. So that's a great summary. Thank you.
And like you said, hasn't been around as long. You know, the ability to even do that has not been around as long as it has been to cut a hole in the ice and jump into cold water.
Right.
So what is the is it dry needling? You guys do that too? I'm not familiar with that. I thought I saw that on your all's site.
It is a service that we offer. It's basically physical therapist version of acupuncture.
Okay.
And we are able to be licensed in the state of Florida. I'm currently not certified in dry needling.
Oh, okay.
So we actually have another therapist that comes in every other Wednesday that does the dry needling. But I'll let you explain.
Yeah, so he hit on it. It's basically physical therapist version of acupuncture. We still use the exact same needles as acupuncture, those tiny needles, but with acupuncture, their goal is more of an energy release, right? You've got built up energy, that chi is what they call it. So they put needles in on your Chinese meridians, that's what the kind of what they learn. And I do think dry needling learns the same way, except for acupuncture is just a lot more superficial, and dry needling goes a lot deeper. Actually, it goes deeper into the trigger point to help get that to release. So it's a lot better for more chronic conditions. Don't do it on a lot of acute issues, and it's more just, you got a stubborn trigger point that just won't release. Like, they're actually able to stick the needle in there and get that to kind of spasm and relax. And she also puts electrical stimulation on the needles to kind of help that impulse. So it just kind of gives that input to the muscle, like, hey,
directly straight to it,
forcing it to relax.
So it's not kind of like cold plunging. It's not the most comfortable feeling. It's not painful. I always like to describe it to people as, it's like if you're feeling achy or cramping, that's the muscle like trying to relax. So it's good. So it's not the most comfortable, but it should never be sharp shooting. Like, it's not feeling like an actual needle is in there, because they're so tiny. You can barely feel that it's a needle. It's just deeper into the tissue, and I love it. I personally, there's a lot of things, it's just, again, it's a chronic, it's something that works better for chronic conditions, something that just won't relax, but
you get a lot out of it for the short amount of time that it takes. Okay. It's not a magic fix, but it's certainly a great tool.
Yeah, it's another tool in our toolbox, with everything that we do.
You guys got quite the toolbox over there.
That's what it's all
awesome.
about, man.
That's cool, man.
Put more tools in there.
What's next? Is there anything that you guys want to get into further that you don't have yet? I mean,
we've been blessed that we've really been growing steadily in this last year. And we talked on the way in that we also do like the VO2 max output testing. That's something else that we offer at our clinic. Is Courtney actually administers the VO2 max output testing on our treadmill, and we have the technology in the system to hook you up to basically this unit that measures your CO2 versus O2 input output and your heart rate zones, and it gives you some great data to guide your training basically,
and then look to build upon. Do people come back 6 months, year down the road, and see if they've been able to make improvements to that baseline? Or
absolutely. So we have a couple different options. We have some people that come in and just get tested. They just want their VO2 max output number, because that's another thing that's kind of on the up and up, is all this, all this zone 2 training, and they want to know exactly where their heart rate range should be and what their VO2 max output is, because that's like the gold standard of predicting your cardiovascular health is the VO2 max. So we'll have people come in, get tested. They'll get their zone ranges and their numbers. And we also have the option that you can get individualized programming based on those numbers to then improve it. And then we have them come back, anytime really, but no less than 3 months later, because they're, you want to make sure you're training in those proper ranges. So 3, 6, 12 months later, people will come back in, get retested, see obviously, hopefully, if and where they've improved, and then get new training based on that.
Oh, very cool. And then you'd build the training platforms for them, or what the recommendations are as far as how long they should spend in a certain heart rate, or
So it's individualized based on your goals, based on how you're training, based on what you're training for. It's just a safe way, because the Apple Watches, the Garmin's, all of those, they may have the VO2 output on them now, but they're typically just an algorithm. And
how does it measure that from your wrist?
It's pretty much
rate.
Just heart rate.
Okay.
It's just heart rate, and then it's an algorithm based on where you spend your heart rate, how often you're spending your heart rate ranges, how fast your heart rate spikes up in a workout. But it's just an algorithm. Typically, it's just an equation based on
what you inputted, or what it's being told.
Age, but it's not exact. So we like to say ours is a lot more. It's literally got a mask on your face, and it's measuring when you're no longer efficiently using the oxygen that you're breathing in. And then it's like when you hit that anaerobic state of then your muscles are helping you. So basically when you reach that threshold. So
Got it. Yeah. Very cool. I mean, obviously. Go ahead. Yeah.
A lot of people have been really encouraged by their results because they were going based off of their watch, and they were actually under training because they thought that they had to stay lower to be in zone 2. And in fact, their zone 2 was 20, 30 beats per minute more.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, now I can actually push it a little bit more and know that I'm in zone 2. So
that's where those data points would come in handy.
Exactly.
I think you can get, it can become too complicated where people are thinking too much into it, and it's like we were talking about earlier, like you just need to get out and move a little bit more depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But I did the whoop strap for a little bit and was like tracking the sleep, and it's just like I'd look at it, I'd feel perfectly, like I got enough sleep, I'm good, and I'd look at it and I'm like, oh, you were only in REM sleep for X amount of time, like try to do better. I'm like, it felt like something that was more, I don't know, I didn't see the long-term benefit of tracking everything, but I do like the baseline aspect of like, this is where I'm at, maybe come back in, like you said, 6 months to a year if you're trying to improve your overall cardiovascular health. But that's kind of where I'm at, because with surfing, it's paddling is the hardest part. People's always like, like I don't have the balance for it or whatever, which is important. But if you can't paddle out to where you need to be and stay there, like then you're going to have a hard time. So now I've been wearing this GPS watch while surfing that tracks like how much I paddle and things like that. So I'm paddling like, 3 miles a session right now, which is kind of where I focus on more of my cardiovascular health, is just trying to stay focused on being able to surf.
Definitely an endurance sport.
100%. Yeah.
So when you've been out there, you paddle out and you're so out of breath, you don't even want to catch a wave for 30 minutes. Like,
you got to sit out the back for 30 minutes. Yeah. And then, it's not like you can just press a pause button and paddle back in. I was out in California in the end of January. And the first day I got there, it was like shoulder high. Next day, it was like head high. And then the final day, it was like overhead. So that increases, obviously, how much work you got to do while you're out there. And I got to the point where I'm like dead tired. So surfed 4 times in 3 days. I got to go to like 4 days of meetings after. And I was like, I'm glad I trained as much as I did for this. It was like a little surf trip I get to train for, which was cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sweet. I wanted to ask you about longboarding, right?
Yeah.
So that 7.0, when the waves get big, I don't feel comfortable on it because no duck diving. Like, how comfortable are you, like in bigger surf with that longboard?
I wouldn't go out on a bigger day on my longboard.
Got it.
I need to get back into surfing again, honestly.
Nice.
I would get something like you have, like that floaty fish,
Yeah.
and go out on like chest head high day. But
That's perfect.
I'd say my hurricane days might be in my past.
Oh, really? Okay. We'll see. All right.
You might be able to encourage me to change that up.
I like it. Yeah. I've been surfing like 3 days a week, man. Being over here is helping, and obviously having boards close by. And my son, my daughter love it. They've started swimming when they were 2, and then by 4, they were both surfing, which was important to the both of us to be comfortable in the water and in the ocean and stuff like that.
Yeah, I have a 6 and a 4-year-old.
Oh, yeah?
Home, so
Boys, girls?
a boy and a girl.
Oh,
6
nice.
Boys 6 and girls 4. And they're getting very comfortable in the water, and that's a huge goal of mine as well. Obviously, we live in Florida. We're surrounded by water. So.
There's a lot of water around. Absolutely.
And I'm from Indiana, a landlocked state, so I don't necessarily even love the water.
No.
I live beachside, so I'm trying to get a little bit more comfortable with it. So
I get it, though. I mean, people that have a fear or reservation towards it, you should, in a lot of cases, it, obviously your ability to breathe is very important. And I think a lot of people focus on, what they're eating, what their activity is. But I always talk about breath work as something people don't think a lot about. You can go a week without water. You can go 14 days a month without food. Some people do these crazy 45-day fasts. I'm not sure what the longest fast is. That's my face exactly. But people don't think about you can't go 2 minutes without breathing.
Right.
So incorporating breath work into stuff.
It's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's you don't see the immediate benefit as you would of getting out in an ice bath and feeling it instantly. It seems like it's more of a long-term game, but do you guys incorporate breathwork conversations into your clients at all, or how does that stuff work?
Definitely, yeah. I would say, especially pre-cold plunge, we sometimes encourage them to do a little bit of research into Wim Hof and maybe just teaching or practicing diaphragmatic breath, before getting in there, just expanding those lungs, kind of getting some internal heat going before getting in. But that's the biggest thing we encourage, like when people first get in the cold plunges, you have to get your breath under control.
We get a lot of people that like hyperventilate, like just takes their breath away. And I mean, again, that's the ultimate goal, is you just get that initial takes your breath away, but then really mindfulness and really focusing on your breathing. Like people that are really struggling with it for their first time, I really tell them to try to settle down and try to just like count your breaths. Like take really big breaths. If you take like 10 to 15 really big deep breaths, that's like kind of your 2 minutes right there.
You're almost done.
Then you're out.
So I have them, I'm just like, close your eyes, don't stare at the clock, and just breathe. And then like they're able to get through it a little bit more often, I've noticed, when we just kind of say, just don't focus on what you're feeling, just focus on your breathing. So we do incorporate that. And then he hit on it a little bit with the diaphragmatic breathing. We actually give people that a lot for PT side of things. Like your diaphragm is a huge core stabilizer, and a lot of people don't know how to breathe properly. And so just simply giving them a silly little exercise as diaphragmatic breathing for 5 minutes a day can help like back pain, it can help neck pain, it can help a lot of stuff, because
there's
just
muscles in there that you're utilizing.
The diaphragm is a muscle, and it's just, it's a big, huge core stabilizing muscle. So if you're, not breathing properly or enough, and it just can be something that's used even not just on the cold plunge side of things or mindfulness side of things, but it can also be for a physical side of things as well.
Yeah, I've been using this. Do you know who Boss Rutan is? He's a former MMA fighter.
I do not.
He had legendary cardio. He's a kickboxer, and then he went into the UFC. But he made this O2 trainer device. You hold it in your mouth, and it's got different basically you only breathe out of one side of it, but you can start with like a hole this big, and then it gets all the way down to like a pinpoint. So then you're doing that type of breathing where you're all the way in, all the way out, but you're out of whatever comfort level. And that's what I've enjoyed the most out of it. I feel like those muscles getting stronger the more I'm utilizing.
You are training that muscle.
I've been doing it in the plunge. So I bring that thing while I'm sitting in the plunge, and I'm breathing in and out versus watching the clock, like you said.
I think we've had one or two people that have like brought something, and I'm like, oh, what is that? We should look more into that. It's not been very many people, but they'll like bring something that it's like a purposeful breathing. It's not like a machine or anything, but
it's a little piece of plastic. It looks like a mouth guard. You basically bite down on it. It's called the O2 trainer. He's been selling quite a bunch of them, but that one's been fun, and I think it's helping my cardio too. Obviously, the more breathing I've been doing.
My favorite was the guy who brought the harmonica.
I wasn't there that day.
That's a good idea. Yeah, you're breathing there with that thing.
Right?
Was he good at it?
No.
You'd rather him be cussing at you than breathing the harmonica?
It was certainly entertaining for that day. So we never know what's going to come through that door and what we're going to experience. So
that's got to be exciting too.
The beauty of what we do.
For sure.
Had some interesting sound effects come out of people. And
oh my God.
Like, hey man, you're not by yourself here.
There's others around. Yes. Nice.
But
Cool. Let's see. So the what else? I mean, what else do you guys do over there that we didn't discuss? Or is there anything else that you want to talk about or that's coming to mind?
No, I think we hit on a lot of it. Where you asked kind of what do we see in like growth, and what next. And we'd love to continue to grow. At this point, we're kind of in a facility that we've pretty much maxed out our space. We're in there for at least another year. We just signed a lease, but our goal would be, bigger facility, more things, whatever. We as therapists like research, so we don't just want to get the new cool fad thing.
Right.
We want something that, that is beneficial, that there's research that works. And so that would be something if we get a bigger facility that we'd really like to look into. We've talked about the hot side of things for water. We have the sauna, but we don't have a hot tub or a hot plunge. So there might be some people that want to do the hot cold water contrast instead of a sauna. So a bigger space,
a steam room,
sauna. We could have both, and maybe people could have the option if they want to go dry sauna or infrared sauna. We're just kind of unfortunately limited on space, but we've kind of maxed. Like we have done the best. I think we've done really well with using our space. So. we'd like to bring in more providers, you know, to have that kind of one-stop shop. You know, we refer out to other PTs, or we refer out to chiropractors, because, you know, we should all work together.
Oh, yeah.
And it'd be nice to have them more in-house, or we refer out to massage and all this kind of stuff. So it would be nice to kind of have, instead of referring out to another facility, that they're like in our facility, you know. So that would be our next goal.
That makes sense. I mean, obviously, not limit your square foot in the beginning, but as you're building a concept, you know, make sure it works before you take on too much overhead.
Establish that it's going to be, you know, successful, and we've done that.
That's that's exactly what we've done. We started in a loft, literally a 400 square foot space with just us two and two tables, and then we grew to the facility behind the gym, but on half of the suite. And then there was a commercial kitchen in the other half of the suite. It was weird, but, you know. And then she left, and we took over that side of it. So, like, we've just steadily grown from you know, the loft, and it's been a good way to do it, instead of like biting off more than we can chew at the beginning.
Sure.
So it's a good
smart way to do it.
It's a good problem to have, right? Is that we're out of space. What next? But it's definitely something we need to be thinking about in the next year, where we want to go with that and what kind of stuff we want to get and do.
And a cool avenue to, like, you know, pay attention to what is actually working, not just the fads, right?
Sure.
And obviously incorporate that. But yeah, I wanted to do, I said it was for my wife to get the hot side of the plunge too. She doesn't get in the cold too frequently. I haven't got her quite convinced on that. But what I like to do is go from that to the sauna. So I'll go like 110 in the plunge in the water, and then go like 200 or 210 in the sauna. So like 10 minutes, usually post workout. And then I usually feel like I'm like dying or hallucinating, not in a fun way, you know, towards the end of that. But I do enjoy the hot water too, more than I did in the past. I never was really, if you wouldn't catch me in a hot tub, you know, especially like a community hot tub, you know, like, no, you're not going to catch me in that thing.
Probably feels good on, you know, your joints and your muscles, and just that hot, like, that hot component to it.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned Wim Hof. He's a character that a character is a good way to put it, but I found him, oh man, I don't know how many years ago, when he was doing those, and they were like injecting him with like bacteria, and he was able to like fight them off, you know, if that's making sense. And then they were doing it in other countries, and, you know, kind of silly way to think about it. I was like, okay, if he comes to, you know, like an American hospital, like that'll make it more realistic for me. And then he did. He was in some hospital in New York doing the same kind of testing, and they had to like rewrite like medical books because they didn't think you had access to what he proved that he did. So he was an interesting one, and really started a lot of the cold exposure stuff, I think.
I would say that dives like into like the immune system benefits of contrast therapy that we haven't really touched on much today, is that you when you get into cold water, your liver creates these proteins that basically seek free radicals in your body, and oxidants basically. So these cells seek out these bad cells, they eat them, and then the byproduct is heat. So your liver is producing these pathogen fighting cells that are clearing your body of bad stuff, but also heating you back up at the same time. So you're getting an immune system boost, and you're warming your body up at the same time. So I think that's like fascinating.
I agree. And a huge, you know, obviously a few years ago, you know, people's immune systems was a hot topic, right? And your ability to, you know, make sure you're doing what you can to, you know, focus on having a solid immune system, but
proactive, you know, prevention there.
Yeah. And I hate to even say it because I don't necessarily believe in jinxing things, but man, I have not been like sick in a long time, and I credit that a lot to the amount of time in heat, in cold, putting your body in different environments that aren't necessarily comfortable, but you get used to it, you know, over time. So I think that's a huge benefit that, like you said, like that we sort of hadn't even talked about.
I think like we're very much a pleasure-driven society,
for sure.
and that putting a little bit of discomfort into your persona is a good thing, and it's kind of gotten forgotten about a little bit. And
definitely,
it allows you to react to those stressors and potential, you know, diseases, if you will, illnesses better.
I think people, like you were saying, get too caught up in you know, the future and the past. I think that's what a guy that came on, he's been treating some people for, different things, and he came on and was explaining depression and anxiety in a way that like made perfect sense. He's like, anxiety lives in the future and depression lives in the past, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get that. But I think a lot of times, like you said, people don't put themselves in like a real stressful environment, so they stress about all kinds of other things,
little stuff,
you know,
right.
yeah, all the time, which is a huge benefit in itself. You know, I mean, a lot of people suffer from those kind of things and impact their life in a tough way.
Yes.
You know, in a tough way.
Well, that's another thing we just haven't hit on a lot of it is they actually say you're putting your body in this stress, and then so you're going to be able to handle stress better later. So so I actually I use it a lot for my anxiety. I've noticed that when I get in, like I definitely feel a lot better because that I just kind of live in a high cortisol state being a small business owner and constantly that way. So it just really helps regulate me. But it's like I think everybody, Andy Huberman, Joe Rogan, everybody who does that, you basically you're putting your body in that state of stress, but then you're going to be able to handle stress better down the road because your nervous system is kind of used to it.
Yeah. So Huberman, when Huberman started blowing up and getting more popular, I mean, his ability to make things make sense is nice, you know, and then the measuring, you know, I didn't really realize how much was available for like, you know, brain mapping or whatever it is those neuroscientists are using. And then like the actual lifts in dopamine that if you could put that in a pill, you know, people would take it. Yeah. It'd be better than Ozempic, you know. That one scares me, not to change too many gears, but we were talking about this recently at home where, you know, this a few people in my life, you know, I don't want to put people on blast here, you know, I hate doing that, but that the rise in like that weight loss drug scares the crap out of me, you know. Well, especially
from my very limited knowledge in it, it's a lot of people are using it for the wrong reasons. Like it's a diabetic medication first and foremost, and so that's again not to put people on blast, but I've heard again. I don't know a lot about it. I've just kind of from what I've heard, there's could be some pretty decent side effects to it, you know. Yeah. So
you didn't get overweight overnight, you know. You're not to be able to fix it overnight is but I think the comment you made earlier, that's people's mentality. They want the easy way, they want the quick fix, you know, but that's not your body, that's not life, not reality. But it's scary. And then the amount of money, you know, that those companies are making as quickly as they are, you know, kind of shows that there's a demand for it for sure. You know,
there's not as much money in prescribing exercise as there is in being able to mass produce a little pill. Man,
but just injections in general scared the shit out of me. Like the idea of injecting your body with, you know, I think it's blocking or doing something with, your sugar receptors or something like that.
It was made for diabetics. Really, is the main reason. You know, people who can't produce insulin the way they're supposed to.
Right. So. Do you guys get into the nutrition side at all? I mean, is that a piece that you cover with people also?
It's not really our scope of practice, but we have gotten into some partnerships with a few like local people that we refer to for nutrition, and it's something we can generally guide people on, but if they really want to dive into it, we've got a few referrals that we can send people out to. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit because you know them better.
There's a couple people. There's a specifically one of the CrossFit coaches at the gym that I go to. She's a nutritionist, so she does a lot of she does a lot of online nutrition coaching or in person too if they go to the gym. But then there's a gentleman named Ryan, and he owns Gifted Performance. It's an online training and nutrition platform, and we've recently kind of started working with them. And just if anybody asks us about nutrition, like, you know, it's not in our scope and not something that he or I really have gotten into, so we kind of just refer them out, and they take it from there. So either one of them can help with that, but it's another pillar to what we've got going. It's not something that we have in-house necessarily. It's mostly online or contacting them that way, but it's definitely an option that we have now, which is great.
How about not from a client standpoint? I mean, your personal opinions on nutrition. I mean, that's, again, like you said, a huge subject that people like to get into. But what do you guys follow? I mean, anything specific from a nutrition standpoint?
As far as what I do personally, my wife and I pretty much meal prep every week, and
Nice.
we've been trying to like be very mindful of
cool.
what we buy and what we're preparing and things like that. And obviously, it's tough. She's a business owner. Also, we have 2 little kids, and
Nice.
there are occasional pizza nights and things like that.
Which I think you should have. You
very
can't cut it
normal,
out
so.
altogether. Yes.
But it's huge. It's absolutely. I mean, you could train all you want, but if you're not putting the right stuff into your body, then you're certainly not going to get what you want out of it.
I've noticed that as I get older. I can't eat all the same crap I used to eat and still think I can go surf 3 days a week.
You mentioned Kelly Slater earlier. I read his book, and he said back in his early career, he's eating Oreos and Twinkies and everything else, and he realized pretty early on that like he's not going to be able to sustain his career doing that, and that's just a small example.
Sure.
Yeah, I think somebody just summarizes it. You can't out-train a bad diet.
Yeah.
And it's like 70 to 80% is your nutrition, and then the rest is what you're doing in the gym. So, you can go to the gym 6 days a week, but if you're not fueling it properly, you're not going to lose weight. You're not going to have the right nutrition. And I'm the same way with Brett. Like, I just kind of meal prep. I personally have never followed like a macros or a calories plan or anything. I personally haven't done that. I just try to eat healthy, and meal prep throughout the week, but I do enjoy the occasional cookie or pizza or anything like that. But
I was saying to somebody the other day that I think sugar will go down as the worst drug of all time. If you think about it, that's the one that, and it's in everything, obviously now it's a killer and causes a lot of problems. But I think in moderation, like you said earlier, you can have that. But do you know who Laird Hamilton is? He's a famous big wave surfer, and he's in the longevity scene. He's pushing 60 now, and just, like really good athlete still. He said it best a long time ago. It was when people ask what his diet is, it's plants and animals. Like the macro, the tracking of everything. To me, that never made a lot of sense because it's a lot of work and a lot of time into it. But if I really try to just eat plants and animals, I think I feel the best. Cut out all the processed, all the extra sugar, all the bread. But bread is so good, though. And pizza is so good.
I feel you.
Yeah.
It's like we said, it's moderation, and it's just being mindful of it. Yeah, you can dive into that minutia all you want. It's like the VO2 stuff. Like there's all those numbers that you can look at, but if you're having the right philosophy of what you're purchasing and what you're putting in your body, then it's gonna be beneficial. So
that becomes tough, and then there's people like Robert Kennedy Jr. that scares you about the things you're eating and how stuff's being made and manufactured, and not to go down conspiracy theory land, but there's a lot of stuff out there that ends up becoming true, of how they're treating the food that they're feeding Americans because they're trying to make the most money and the most profits possible, and not to put anybody on blast, but it's unfortunate things I have to think about, like where did these things that I'm eating come from?
Be mindful of that.
Yes.
It's scary.
Yeah. And in other countries, they don't have that, as much, much as we do here. So, it's that's a huge topic that people put a lot of thought into, or they put zero thought into at all. What they're eating and what they're doing. So, but I think you hit it right. Like that's the big portion. The exercise is huge, the movement is huge, but if you don't add that layer into it, especially as for me as I get older, I'm like I have to. I don't have an option. Yep. So, sweet. Well, this was fun. It was good to meet you guys. And obviously, it sounds like things are going really well, with your growth so far and not so far over the last few years. But, and again, just back to the comments that people are saying in the community, it's got to feel good. And I'm, again, glad to meet you guys. And
thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks again for having us.
For sure. Yeah. I'll have to come by and check out your spot sometime too.
Come by and check it out. For sure.
I will try not to cuss at you.
Well, you should be used to it.
I was gonna say I'll probably be one of those ones when I get in there and don't say anything.
Oh my God.
I expect you to be a cold plunge pro. Okay.
Yes, who I'll bring somebody maybe that isn't as experienced, and we can do a little contrast. So sweet.
Come down anytime. We're
Sounds
out
good.
in West Melbourne, right? 192, by Crunch, right by the mall out there.
Okay, yeah, nice.
In West Melbourne. So
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys again. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Sweet. That was a piece of cake.
That was fun.
Yeah.
No biggie.
Ooh, no biggie, right?
Yeah, it's just conversations.
That's the goal.